We've received a question from a professor of civil engineering at a leading UK academic institution. And she asks what you should do if you've only got a very short amount of time to prepare for an interview, as little as 5 minutes. Is that enough? Well, the answer is yes. In short, it is more than enough time, but only if you use that time productively. The first thing to remember is that you already know a lot of stuff as an academic or indeed as a non-academic interviewee. That's the whole reason you've been asked to give an interview in the first place, because you have knowledge that the journalist wants you to share with her or his audience. So knowledge is putting you in a powerful position. And the reason you don't need much time is that you've got to take your pre-existing knowledge and knock it down, distill it into 2 or 3 key messages, rather than the much more time-consuming acquiring knowledge in the first place. So it shouldn't take quite as long to take your pre-existing knowledge and to distill from that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 key messages. Then, of course, you have to deliver those key messages in the interview, irrespective of the questions, without sounding slippery, using the question and response, dealing with and moving on template that we use here at ACM Training. I think the other point worth bearing in mind is that if you don't just think about your key messages for a lay audience via the mass media when you're asked to give an interview to a journalist from the mass media, but you think about them in advance as you're doing your research. So you're very well used to having in mind abstracts of your work for academic publications and for academic audiences. What I'm suggesting is that as you do your research, you also prepare, at least mentally, abstracts of your work for a lay audience, an abstract that would include 1 or 2 or 3 key messages, perhaps some carefully chosen evidence to back up those points, and a story or 2 to illustrate those points. So you may only have 5 minutes of actual practice time from the moment you're invited to give the interview, but actually you've been thinking about this for weeks, months, or conceivably even years in advance. I hope that answers your question, Professor. And if you have a question like the professor, well then don't forget to send it to asktheowls@acmtraining.co.uk. There's the email address, asktheowls@acmtraining.co.uk. If we think your question is of value beyond your sector, well of course we'll answer here on the OWL service. Of course, if the question is of a personal or private nature, we won't answer here online. We'll provide you with a written answer offline.